Buenos días.
Good morning. We are going to speak today about a new risk well known to all of us. We hear about it a lot. We think we understand it. And I feel that we are just touching the surface. So the idea is to create some fear, to make you fearful, to create awareness about the importance of cyber and how are we going to respond as an industry. I think that all these business concepts are extremely interesting, as we have heard, pay-as-you-go insurance, all the concepts of membership-based business, but I think that the difficulty is implementing them. And I think that these are the big challenges. How as an industry, as an insurance company, we say, I'm going to have a model, I'm going to launch it into the market without causing any damage. I am an insurer, but I used to spend most of my time working for insurance, but I feel that as an industry, our failure is that we take innovation, we put it in our transactional systems, our business models, and that's the end of it. It's a disaster. So my idea is to tell you about my experience of how we launched a model for cyber risk and what we have learned along the way. But let's first understand what it is. What's the impact, and if you have been affected one way or other. Let's start with a scenario that for the first time in Colombia happened to a colleague of mine, but I think this is becoming more and more frequent. This is a medium businessman that comes to his company Monday morning, and all the computers in the company are blocked. He gets so scared, he calls the system guy, he scolds the IT people, he doesn't know what happened, but he gets a message on his iPhone. And he says, I have blocked your IT system and I want a reward. Immediately, this guy gets a code and says, please deposit this amount of money, usually Bitcoin, so that I unblock your computers. And he pays, of course, because he's very scared. This is the first time this happens to him. And at that point, the problems begins. So what did they do with my information? I must report the regulator. I must inform my clients. And that is already happening in 70% of the small businesses, small and medium businesses in England. This is beginning to happen here in Colombia. And now you will tell me if this has happened to you. So this is the typical situation of a cyber attack. Different things. The type that blocked you and sent you the message, he could be in China, in India, or in any other country. And all of this happens at a speed that you don't have time to react. Let's see a video trying to explain this in the real world. I want you to pay attention to what happens here. This is imitating a cyber attack in a business, a regular business. So let's look at it and then we will have some comments. ¿Y esto es en tiempo real? Mira lo que está pasando ahí. Sí, es exactamente la misma bicicleta. ¿Qué hacen las tiendas Brompton? Dos tiendas Brompton, una frente a la otra. Estoy muy confundida con esto. ¿Qué está pasando? Bueno, ¿será que se robaron una de nuestras bicicletas? No, ¿cómo lo llevaron a esa tienda? ¿Cómo lo entregaron? ¿Qué está pasando acá? Miren todas las cajas que están llegando. ¿Pero usted está seguro que esto no es una entrega para la tienda del frente? No, ¿ustedes también lo compraron? No, ¿qué está pasando aquí? Un momentico, ahí van todos nuestros clientes. ¿Qué está pasando acá? ¿Y ahora van a cerrar? ¿Y qué hacemos? No, un momentico, un momentico. No, 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 esto no está bien. El hecho de que usted no quiere que le pase eso es algo aterrador. Es uno que uno puede ver en internet, pero cuando uno lo ve que le está pasando al frente de uno y está pasando en todas partes. Sí, yo no sabía lo que estaba pasando. Bueno, todo lo que estamos mostrando aquí está basado en métodos delictivos reales y la rapidez con que ocurren. Boxx para que juntos combatamos el ciberataque. Well, you have to see it several times, but the first thing that happens is they steal your identity, they duplicate your internet web page, they send fake customers, and they really make the system go down because it's overwhelmed by clients. And number 3, they steal the goods and the merchandise. And number 4, they ask for a compensation. This is very frequent for companies. In the future, not even the future, but it is the present, they will start attacking individual people. So when I wrote down the title of my presentation, it was Cyber, a Catastrophic Event, because we are just learning about it. We're just developing products. Everybody discusses and talks about it. But it's not an additional to the regular policy we buy every day. It's something different. So who has been a victim of a hack here in this room? Well, there is a large number, maybe 1/5. Who knows what a hack is? Well, first of all, we have to find out what a hack is to know whether you have been attacked. But find it out, because this is our everyday experience. Virtual fraud? Somebody has experienced virtual fraud? A company I was with last week, they received an email from the client, the address of the company owner, asking the purchasing manager to send them an order with 50 computers. He called, he felt that he was experiencing a cold and accepted the order. It was an urgent order. He told the president, our client is asking for 50 computers authorized. The 50 computers left the store. And that is a typical fraud that occurs because there is a spy inside the system, or a company spy that sends information and uses that information for fraud. Fortunately, the insurance company paid. But this is becoming increasingly frequent. And what happens? The employee, and that's the third point, the employee doesn't know how to react. He's not alert to identify these potential frauds. Stealing your identity and stealing your passwords, that very often people block your Gmail, steal your information because they plant a seed on a system. That seed starts absorbing all the information, passwords, internet pages, the documents you write, and 4 or 5 months later they trigger and steal the information. So it's very difficult to identify them. It can already be in our computers, the initial seed. So last question before I start. Have any of you been traders on cyber attacks? Well, very few. I think that the main message is that we should start to train employees to be able to identify cyber attacks, to know how to react and identify early warning signs. So I believe that the message from this video and these slides is it is just coming to Latin America, but I think that it will accelerate in the next few years. And we have to be ready as an industry because I think this is an excellent business opportunity.
This is a survey that we give to different leaders done by the World Bank and asking what are the risks that they threaten you with. And here to the right, we see the climate, extreme weather, natural disasters, but cyber attacks, for example, which is the little yellow ball up there, and identity theft and little things like that are more to the right. There's an awareness there, a concern for us to do something. Our great fear is always not being able to generate the necessary awareness. Am I going to sell it? How am I going to sell it? Am I going to distribute it? How am I going to distribute it? Other examples to have a glimpse of the reality of the financial cost that these things can bear. Sony was a victim of an attack a couple of years ago where it lost 77 million in accounts. 77 million accounts. And they stole all the private emails of the CEO from Sony. That was an attack. You may remember that Sony showed a video saying who he thought it was. Equifax, for example, they managed to hack into Equifax and they stole 143 million records, private records. Some people who have bought in Target may have been the victims of the identity theft of 40, or data theft of 40 million clients. Marriott, for example, an internet page looking for adult friends. Now, this is adult friend finders. But normally the hackers don't work always for money. It's for the pleasure of breaking into something that is private. 4 million names shared. And it was a problem because most of those people were married. And cyber espionage to influence on what people do. So the conclusion is that it is a real threat and we have to look out for it. And it is a threat and it is real and it attacks us. Well, then we need insurance for that. We from Boxx is always the middle-sized companies are our companies. 70% of the attacks are aimed at SMEs, small and medium-sized companies. But $5-10 million, and that's it. They're gone. 60% of those attacks are fatal because you lose reliability, you lose the confidence of your clients, you cannot get over the damages you suffered because there were 3 days where you could not operate. Now, 80% of those attacks can be avoided if the person is duly trained, if the person has a system to warn them, saying, hey, this can be prevented or you're on the verge of being attacked. Okay, so yes, there's a threat that can be comparable with car theft, with identity theft, with flood, whatever. But this is constantly reinventing itself. Because these guys, remember, they used to be born and they used to reinvent themselves and be reborn. And normally we have all the tools to protect, to prevent, but we have to constantly improve because constantly hackers, the companies that make money with this, are constantly reinventing themselves to be more effective. So The world in general is concerned, it's worried. The world is beginning to say there's a problem here, and we are going to see who we pass the responsibility to. And the person who has the data is the person who is responsible for protection. Banks are spending a lot of money on this. Few insurers insure banks because it became a very expensive protection. So the bank self insures its data. But the medium sized companies have a challenge. They don't have the resources to respond to this. I'm going to tell you about who is most vulnerable, who we believe need more help or they need an insurance to protect themselves. And some thoughts about how we should respond to this as an industry. It is not a problem that is easy to solve. The first thing, and I think it's very telling, is that everybody's talking about the cyber, the product, the policy, the insurance, the reinsurance. Everybody's aware of it, everybody's buying, but that's not true. And actually, in the world of $800 trillion, cyber is only $3 trillion. And the key is the execution. The product may be there and may be wonderful. It may have reinsurance, everything, but we haven't been able to distribute it. And because we're working on typical terms, and we cannot begin with typical terms. This cannot continue to be the addition to the police protection against hacking. No, cyber and the cyber market is almost non-existent. And that has been a real challenge, actually, because we don't know how to do the pricing. We don't understand the frequency or the severity. And part of what we are going to have to do in the next 3 years is to gauge the prices, the prevention measures for this type of threat are very difficult to estimate. It's ever more expensive, and the block of companies that are not big have no way of protecting themselves against this. And finally, the client wants something easy, something where he says, hey, I don't purport to understand about this, but I want to be covered when the day comes. Who are the most vulnerable? First of all, there is no awareness of the cyber risk. Really, we always think it happens to our neighbor and not to us. But I had it. For example, I had a client who called me and he said, "Hey, I have a problem. They hacked my account. They're blocking my account, and I need your help." And this is something that happens. It happens in the banks. It happens in the governments. If there is awareness, they call you and they say, "Hey, I need this." And the answer from the IT provider is going to say, we need to improve your infrastructure. And companies with halfway tools, they say, I just don't have the money to afford it. And the SMEs always have little problems. Normally it's a support guy that helps you, but otherwise it's no professional. Some pass the responsibility of systems on to another company that bought the risk from them. And as I tell you, the truth is known at the end when the loss is already materialized, so that it's no good anymore. But so the problem is, how do we help people gain knowledge of this issue? How can it be paid by medium and small companies? You must update constantly with with an expert online. And how can I issue earlier warnings? As I told you, it is very important. Big companies, banks, hospitals more or less, but banks most of all, financial entities, they're well protected. They have lots of budgets. They always have protection. The most vulnerable are most of them, which are the smaller and medium companies. That is one of the most advanced, and it is one of the truest things in Latin America. So when we discovered this problem in Boxx, we said, okay, how does a group of former insurers exist in the world of insurance without setting up an insurance company. We saw the problem, the pay-as-you-go insurance, and we also saw cyber, which is always I mean, we knew we had to think about it, and approach it as a service. I am convinced that our industry must move from offering products to offering services. It's an alliance with the client and a service that the client can use little by little, and depending on his economic ability, starting, say, sort of returning that money so that the fund grows up again to the date when they finally cannot give him anything more on that construction. And this helps us understand how we are approaching the problem. The first thing we're trying to do is to predict. The first thing we do with the entrepreneur is sit down and make a diagnosis. He gives us his IP address, and with his IP address, we boom it, and we will do uh, all your errands. Who tried to hack into the company's card, all those things. So you also generate a company, and you're always there for the first or two cases, and then based on that you can prevent another attack. We already have an own team of people that we call hack busters. Now these are good hackers. They're on our side and they're helping us with their clients. And since it works very easily, the hacker has in his telephone number, he has an application, and they tell us, hey, somebody is trying to get into your system and we want to show it. Sometimes we can't, but in many cases we can contain. We close whatever is entry at that point, and we can verify that nobody went in and fumbled with the product. Um, then you get your credit back. You report the loss. You go to the insurance operator. You look at it. You think, well, okay, where are my guys? And you send them to work on that last loss, and that's it. And as an industry, we should always see whether we offer a service, or whether the loss or the claim will be the last leg of the product in your system. And so, what does this mean? Here, there's a picture. We already launched it in Chile. It's a small country. The idea is to bring the product at the end of the year. What we're proposing actually is a proposal that is tied in with with an insurance company, with Infinity Partners, who can tell us, hey, I'm sure we don't tell me. I have 25,000 uh, people who cannot carry a cup in their hand. So I went ahead and did it, and there's a proposal actually that exists, and it says there's a proposal among the HRH institution that remembers you. So the other thing that we do is share information, which is novel also. These cyber attacks already always have a tendency and characteristics, and in months and in 90 days, these attacks are highly similar. A hacker decides to attack the company for 300,000 pesos, which are basically $100,000, and we go and we estimate the value, and in order to respond, as I told you at the beginning, this is a cheap product. Actually, it costs about $300 a month. It's a simple product. The independent insured will normally go back to eat. They have But normally our clients have all the money to respond. So the technological part, the prevention part, our technicians as hackbusters, it's all happening and it works and it's been proven. Where we spend the most time is in training our employees. Our employees are our eyes, and they prevent the magnitude of the loss. And so we have an intranet page where we allow all our people to read about us and to go to us if they have a problem. So to summarize and to conclude, I think that the main message is that the cyber attack is real, that we're seeing it every day, and that in countries like Colombia, where we thought that would only happen abroad, no, it's happening every day here too. Today, in terms of industry and insurance, I would say that many of the property policies are subject to this regime. There is a huge influence in the market, but we must make sure that it will help people. And if we do it right, we are going to find that that number is normally that it's normally what it is given by the insured. Now, and a key of our services is that this where we have to be ingenious. We need to know who the buyer is. It can't be the somebody that doesn't care about us. We have to also think through technology of making this always be operational. And as I was saying at the beginning of the presentation, I am firmly convinced that cyber is going to be so big and so important, as big and as important as the dish that we had ready for the cereal this morning. We also have to be as ready. And the person that is going to win in this dark world is the client, is the company who is going to meet or make good on the